Hey guys, welcome back to Programming Knowledge. In this video, we'll be looking more about the escape sequences which we had talked about in the previous video, and we'll be learning how to perform input in C++. So before getting started with the input, let's talk more about the escape sequences. So the escape sequences which I talked about in the previous video are /A, /B, you have /T, and then once again /T/N, right? There are actually many other escape sequences also. You do have a /V, but all these things we won't be using much. /V is for a vertical tab. We won't use that much, but you can always go up into the internet and then check for the list of escape sequences there. So yeah, what do we need escape sequences for? Is it just to perform these actions, or do they have other purpose also? So let us say I wanted to print something like this. So let us say I wanted to print escape sequences. Let me just put it without a brace so that this is the exact sentence I will be needing on the screen, right? So just try to print this. Escape sequences start with a slash and have a character and have a let's say single quote single, or have a single character in them, something like this. I wanted to print this particular statement as it is onto the console. You might think it's very easy, right? Just cut it. Well, I'm just going to cut it and then put it in pair of double quotes and then paste it over there, and then let's just run it. It says it's an error. Why? It is expecting a semicolon before single. Well, we do have a semicolon, right? What's the problem with this? Well, the problem is when you are putting a backslash in a string, it is going to consider a backslash and the subsequent character as a escape sequence itself. And here, once you put a double quote over here, it means that this is a separate string, and then this is a separate string, and this is actually something in between, right? So it doesn't have any meaning at all. So what we actually wanted was we wanted this double quote to appear onto the screen, right? But we cannot do that. Do we have a way? Yes, we do. That is by using escape sequences itself. So here I wanted a backslash to appear, right? So how do we make a backslash appear? Backslash itself is an escape character. Well, the workaround is you put another backslash. So this, what it means is, it means that this is an escape sequence, and this particular escape sequence just means that you need to put a backslash on the screen. So that is why you were getting an error back then, and now you will be getting a backslash perfectly as you wanted it. And here, instead of these quotes, you actually put a backslash before the quote, right? So what this is if you put an escape quote over here, if you put a quote as a escape sequence, it means that this quote is not a part of this quote, which is actually indicating the start or end of a string, but it's an escape character itself, and it needs to be printed onto the screen. That is what means if you use a quote with a escape sequence. So the same thing goes over here also. If I just put a backslash, it is going to go away. This is now entirely highlighted in blue. That just means that this entire thing is now a string. And now if I execute it, I'll be getting the output. So here you can see escape sequences start with a backslash and have a single character in them, and single is enclosed within double quotes. Now exactly what we wanted. So that is the importance of escape sequences. So there are many other, so there are many places where you will be needing them. So something like you wanted to enclose something using double quotes, or you wanted to put a backslash over some place, or suppose you wanted backslash n to appear, but you can't directly print like this, right? You know what this is. Backslash n is actually a new line. So if you put something like this and if you try to execute it, you will be getting something like this thing. Escape sequences start with a and then a new line and then a space and then have a single character in them. So that becomes a problem. How do we do that? Same thing, you just put double backslashes, and then so now this actually this backslash and this backslash n are now different. This backslash only corresponds to this backslash, and then this n is now treated as a separate character. So now if you run this, you will be getting your output. So escape sequences start with the backslash n, you just got what you wanted and have a single character in them. So this is how you use escape sequences in your strings. Now let us talk about the input. Before talking about input, let us talk about something called data types. Let me write it down here. Data types. Why do we need to know about this? Well, you can't just take input, right? You need to store the input at some place so that you can use it at a later stage. So where we store the data is actually defined by the memory location. And how we allocate memory, that depends on the type of data we are going to get. So we need to know what kind of data we are going to get as an input so that we can store that data. So what kind of data can we get? We can either get numbers or characters, right? We can't get anything else. Well, we do have other types of data also, something like you have graphs or you have images, videos, but all that are ultimately broken down into numbers only. That's a different story. We're not going to talk about that at this stage. But for now, we can say that data is fundamentally consists of only numbers and characters. We can't get anything else other than that. So the way we data types are broken down is to satisfy either numbers or characters. So in numbers, what do we have? We have integers, or we do have real numbers. So real numbers are nothing but decimals, fraction, all these things. So the way we take integers is by int. So int is the data type which is for integers. So this is the data type and this is what it means. So integers it's going to take. So any integer it's going to take -12 or 20 or 20,000. All these are integers only. So can it take anything? Can it take even infinity? Well, no. Integer do have a range value, and that ranges. So let me write it separately here. That ranges from -2 power 31 to 2 power 31 minus 1. Well, it's not 2 into 31, it's 2 power 31 minus 1. So this is the range of the integers. It is going to take up to this big numbers. So you do have something called short and unsigned, signed ends, all these things. We will be talking about that at a later stage. For now, this is the range of integers. So you can store as small as -2 power 31 and as big as 2 power 31. 2 power 31 is nothing but it's around 4 billion. So that is the number you can store in int. So what if we need a bigger number than 4 billion? Let's say 6 billion or 8 billion. For that, we do have a solution. We are going to use long. So long is another data type. So long is actually a type modifier. It is not a data type. Long you can use it with int. So this actually makes it pretty readable. So it is nothing but a big integer. So what it does is it's going to store bigger numbers than int. So this will take about 8 bytes of memory. This is going to take only 4 bytes. So this is 4 bytes of memory. We'll be looking at how this 4 bytes right now. There's actually a way to check how much memory this takes. So this is going to take 8 bytes of memory, and its range is approximately up to 64, 2 power 64. Approximately it goes up to this. So this is a huge number, right? You don't practically need much bigger than this. 2 power 64 is very big. 2 power 32 itself is big, right? 2 power 31, 2 power 32, they almost go up to 4 billion. So you don't need bigger numbers than that, but in case you need, you have long integers. Same goes with the real numbers also. If you are working with smaller decimals or real-time decimals which are not so big, you have float, which is for decimal numbers. So you got -2 or sorry 0.2, or you got something like 0.0003 or all these things. So 12.0 also, if you just put a 0.0, it becomes a float, and these are all floats. And then if you want bigger floats, you do have double. Double is for bigger floats. Bigger floats. This again is for 8 bytes, and this is the range of double. So in C++, if you did not specify the data type, if it is if just a number, if it's just an integer, it is always going to default to integer only. And if it is a decimal number, it is always going to default to double. So what I did here is just added a comment. So comments are those statements which are not executed by the compiler. I'll be showing a demo shortly. So for regarding data types, these are the data types for storing numbers. And for characters, you don't need much. You have only two types of character inputs. That is, you get only one character or you get a collection of characters. So for one character, you have char. That is for one character. And for multiple characters, you have strings. So strings is actually more than just collection of characters. There's much more to talk about strings. We'll be doing that at a later video. So now for characters, the way we define characters is by using single quotes. So you have, if you put anything inside a single quote, something like A, or if you put B over here, or exclamation mark, anything inside a single quote, but only one character, strictly only one character. You cannot put multiple characters inside a single quote. That will cause an error. And the fun fact is, if you put something like this will also become, even though one is an integer, if you put it inside a single quote, it becomes a character. The same goes with decimals also. You cannot put decimals inside single quotes because it contains more than one character, right? So even if you put 1.0 something like that, 1 is a character, this period is a character, and then 0 is also a character. So you cannot put more than one character inside string. So that will come under strings. So strings, how do we define? Like we did here. So using double quotes. String is just a collection of characters. Collection of characters. That's it. And it is going to be enclosed within double quotes. So anything you put inside double, even if you don't put anything inside double quotes, this is also a string. This is called a null string. We'll talk about null and all these things at a later stage, but for now, just for your information purpose, I'm just telling about the null string. And you do, even if you put something like this is going to be a string. It is just a space, and even one character also, it is going to be considered as a string. So this is also a string. And now you can put something like 1.0 or 1.0002. All these are now considered as strings. The way you represent data is very, very important. If just take numbers, if you just put 1, it is going to be int. If you put 1.0, it is going to be double. Remember that here. If you put if you do not specify the data type, it is going to be defaulted to double only in C++. And if you want to float, if you want the data type to be float, you can just add an F over there. So if you just put F over here, it is going to be float. The same goes here also. If you want this one to be considered as long, you just put an L over there. So this is considered as long. And how do you define a character? Put like this. This is going to be a char. And if you put it like this is going to be a string. So see how differently it is interpreted if we type the data in a different way. So this is the importance of data types. Anything we get from the character is categorized only into these data types. So we don't have to worry about any other data. Whatever we type is just going to be a subset of all of these things. Now let us work on some real input. Yeah, forgot to mention about the comments. So let us know, well, we can actually show the comment over here only. So suppose I want this data, but this is something for you to understand, right? So these are not part of C++ comments. These are something I typed, right? So these don't make any sense in C++. But I don't want to delete it because I'll be using it to explain to you guys. So how can I do that without, and also run this program without actually going into an error? I cannot write another program and use a separate file, right? I don't want to do that. I can, but I don't want to do that. Well, for that, we have something called comments. I need this data, but I don't want the computer to execute it. So what I do is I'm going to hide this data from the compiler. So the way we do that is by using these lines as comments. So comments are actually used to explain some lines of code, and also they are generally used to actually debug the program. So if you are developing a big program and you don't want some of the lines to execute and you directly want to see what is the result of 2 or 3 lines, you can actually comment out the other lines and you can see the result. That is going to be very useful when you're testing the program. So for that, comments are there. So there are 2 types of comments. One is a single line comment, which I did over here. So this is just going to comment out this entire line. So whatever I'll write after this pair of forward slashes is considered a comment. So all these are commented out. And then if I need to comment out multiple lines, the way I do that is by putting a forward slash and putting a star over there. So you can see all these are grayed out now. And the thing is, it is completely graying out my program. So even this thing is grayed out. And now if I try to execute, I will be getting an error. It says that this unterminated comment is there. That is this one. See, this one has been started, but it is not terminated at any point. So I want to terminate my comment over this line because these are the lines I don't want the compiler to execute, right? So to terminate, I'm just going to do the reverse of it. I'm going to put a star and then a slash. So this is actually going to comment out all these lines. These lines stay in my program code. These are not going to be executed by the compiler. So now I can run my program without any issues and I'm going to get the output. So that is the importance of comments. We will be commenting out many things at a later stage when we are working with bigger programs. Comments are very important. So now let us write some useful code. Let us now write a program to add 2 numbers. So it is always wise to actually put a comment on what you're doing and also put some authorization. So you can put something like @author or something like that. You can do all those things. But for now, I'm just going to write the name of the program. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write a program to add 2 numbers. It is always advised to put comments before your program code. You don't have to put it over there only. I'm just putting it there. You can put it anywhere you like. I can put it inside here also. I can put comments anywhere I like. Now let us write a program to add 2 numbers. So first thing is I need to ask the user to enter because obviously we need to ask the user something, then only is going to know what your program is doing. So let us say enter the first number. Simple. Enter the first number. And now how do we now we need to create a memory location. I told you, right? We need to create a memory location to actually store our input. The way we do that is we need to first specify what kind of data we are going to get. What we can, because it's a number, it is actually going to be floats or doubles, right? We can add any number, but for simplicity purpose, I'm just going to go with int. You can actually go with floats or doubles also. It is completely up to you. I'm just going to go with int in this tutorial. So I'm just going to type int and then I need to name the location. We need to give some meaningful name. So this is also known as a variable declaration. We are just creating a variable to store something. So this can be understood as a mathematical function, right? So we are just going to put x equal to 5. It just means that variable x is storing the value 5. But in computer, this is what is happening. If you are declaring a variable, it means that you are actually creating a memory block and then assigning a name to that. So it's just like an alias for the memory block. So here I'm just going to name it num1 just to keep it simple. And here you can do 2 things. You can either specify the value which is going to go inside the memory location, or else you can even skip that. So here, since I don't know what is going to go inside this location, I'm just going to skip it and enter a semicolon. This means that this command is terminated. So while executing this command, the compiler will know that it has to just create a memory location. And now, how do you get the input? It is just the reverse of it. You guessed it right. If it is C out, it is going to be C in. And then if it is this side, this is going to be on the opposite side. Well, this is how we take input. And then in where do we need to store the input? We need to store it in this location. So just write num1 and then put a semicolon. So we got our input inside num1 location. Same thing we need to do for the next number also. So I'm just going to copy paste that, and here instead of first number I'm just going to write second number, and then instead of num2 I'm just going to store instead of num1 I'm going to store it in num2 location. Now I need the sum of these two numbers, right? So remember that I can directly put numbers, so you can directly show the sum like this. So you can write sum is, and this one, and then what was that, num1 plus num2, you can directly put like this. But this actually makes it a little bit confusing, and it is always advised to keep your code very understandable. So if somebody is reading your code, they should understand what is going on. So this is not always a best practice unless you're into competitive programming. You need to consider all memory and all those things. But we are now learning, so it is always advised to use as many variables we want. So for storing the sum, I'm just going to go with an integer. So because if you add two integers, you're only going to get an integer, right? Well, I'm not talking about the border cases where you go with very big numbers like 2 power 32 plus 2 power 32. That is obviously going to go out of the range of integers. But I'm just talking about normal cases. So I'm just going to store it inside this location sum, and what it is going to store, it is going to store the value of num1 plus num2, and then I'm going to invoke the sum over here. So remember in the previous video I told that memory locations and numbers can be accessed without this double quotes. That is why I put sum without double quote. And now if I execute it, here we have our first program of addition. This is our first useful program. It is not just printing something onto the screen. It is actually doing something for us. So here I'm going to enter the first number. It is 12. Second number, let's say something like 24. And then if I enter it, the sum is 36. Perfect. 12 plus 24 is 36. We got our answer. Yeah, I forgot to mention the way we check size of the data type is by an operator called Sizeof. So how we do that? We just put size and then put an off, and inside the brackets you are going to name your data type. You can either put the data type or you can put the data itself. So if I just put 1 over here, and let me put an endl so that you don't get confused with that compiler statements. So here you are going to get 4. Why? Because 1 is an integer. As I told you, it is going to be treated as an integer only. And if I just put 1.0, as I told you, it is going to be defaulted to a double. That is why the size is 8. And now if I put 1.0f, it is going to be treated as a float, and you will be getting only 4 bytes. So that is how Sizeof works. And now if I just put a character, it is going to take only 1 byte. So if I just put like this, you're going to see 1 over here. And then even for a null character, that is, I'm not putting any character, these are just two codes side by side. Even if I run this, I'll be getting an error. It says empty character constant. That cannot be done. Another thing is, if you just put one character inside double quotes, let's see what happens. In single quote, this written 1, right? So what will happen in the double quote? Well, as I told you, string is nothing but a collection of characters. So maybe it will be the count of the characters, right? So something like hello, if I just put hello, then this is actually 5 characters, right? HELLO makes 5 characters, so the size should be 5, right? But you'll be surprised that the size will be 6. So that is why I told you strings are something more than just collection of characters. There is something called a concept of terminating character or a null character. We'll be talking about that when we are discussing strings. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we'll be talking about strings and how to use them in our program. So till then, I would like you to actually meddle around with the code. I would like you to do as many errors as possible and try to read these errors. Errors are very important. So you just try to do something like this and then compile. You know that this is going to result in an error, but what is important is this message, because every time it is not going to give you a perfect message for your error. So something, if I have something like this, if I just forgot a semicolon over here and then put something like uh, let's say hi over here and then put a semicolon, and if I try to compile it, it is going to show an error in this line. It says in line number 8 it is expected it expected a semicolon before cout statement, but there is a semicolon statement. Where is the error? It is actually in the previous line. I forgot to put a semicolon in this line. So that is why you make as many errors as possible and try to understand these lines. These are very important. It is going to help you to write better code. You won't find yourself trying to figure out where the error happened. Since I'm writing this real time, I did not practice anything out of it. So many times I will also be making mistakes, and I will be telling you what mistakes I made by reading these errors. So till then, happy